echoes. Okay, that's what it looks like when a class is actually being recorded. And I'll have all these posted onto just a playlist that goes through YouTube. So if there was anything you'd like to revisit, it's always going to be recorded for later on. I want to close that. And we're about ready. Well, welcome back, everyone. So this is statistical reasoning. And for today's class, we're not going to get too deep in the weeds with actual statistics. It's going to be more about how to get started with the course. We're going to go through the syllabus, maybe even more importantly, the Moodle website, how the class is going to run, where to look to find resources. And if time permits, we'll take a look at the notes here. But it's kind of a question and answers kind of session with a preview of how the course is going to be ran. So before I go through those things, anything that folks would like to start us out with today? Any questions that are burning that you'd like to get off your shoulders right away? Okay, we'll probably find out what the questions even are as we get going. But here's the habit I usually am going to get into on pretty much every single class. And I'd encourage you to do the same as well with your coursework. Everything that happens at this class is always going to run through Moodle. So very first thing you'd want to do is click on the statistics here from the Moodle website. I'm always going to have the Moodle pretty much turned to right where we left off. Here, we're just right at the very top. That's just one long set of resources. The readings, the notes that we're going to be using are all going to be posted. Pertinent dates like exam dates and such, or midterm dates and so on, will always be posted here as well. And I'll have your grades constantly posted to this set right here. I can't click on that because I don't want to reveal everybody's names, but I would get in the habit of double checking this really starting on week 2 once I have information to upload. And your total grade for the course is always going to be kept up to date on a weekly basis. So I guess we can jump right into the syllabus. I don't want to go through the entire thing. It's a really, really long document. So we're just going to skip around. Yeah, go ahead.
And I opened Moodle this morning and I only have one class listed, even though I know I'm teaching.
That is really weird. Was it this class that was listed? It wasn't even this class?
No,
oh, strange. So I would say that there's probably something with registration. I'd probably want to call ISU right away to see what's going on. I know that they're closed right now, but do you know where the, gotcha. I would go, just for anyone else that's interested, my mouse is dying. Let me try again. For any weird issues like that, we're right here in the CHE building. They're closed right now, but if you go to this student union building over here, then they have lots of student resources. Second floor is the student information center, where they can help out in great detail of that. Sounds like there's probably just something wrong with Moodle. They messed it up. You should be on those lists. Other questions at the moment? Okay, I'm gonna attempt to fix the mouse. They have a keyboard tray, in case you're curious, but it just doesn't fit on top of the desk where I do everything. So we have to use a wireless mouse to make class work. And I don't think it wants to work. Last try with this thing. I'm going to chalk it up to the battery. We'll fix that on the next class meeting. And we'll move down. Well, back to the syllabus. Again, I'm not going to try to run through every little thing here. One thing I'd want to point at right away is at the very, very end. Anything that's in italics is something that's written by the university itself, not me. And so the university resources are things that I would say every student should be very, very well aware of, especially if you're a first-year student and it's your first time seeing this. I'd read each one of these very, very in-depth. There's a lot of information on being successful, many different resources that you have available to yourself. And other interesting things like academic complaints, grievances, these can possibly come up, heaven forbid, and other interesting information. Aside from that, at the very end of the syllabus, it's just really kind of a minimal set of information you need to get going, need to know to get going. For example, I'm Michael Jacobson. You can call me Mike, Michael, Jacob, or Jacobson, completely up to you. You've all achieved where to find me, so that part's irrelevant. If you need to get in contact with me, this is my cell phone right here. It's almost always muted, so it's not the best resource, but you can use it, especially in a pinch. And I'm very, very responsive on this email right here. Any workstation I'm on, I'm always just kind of watching that email. So you can send me any kind of question through that. It could be a question about homework, class, so on. I'll be very happy to help out. Other ways to get help, aside from email itself, could be just office hours. These office hours right here are in my office. I was here on Monday, I'll be there Wednesday, and for the rest of the semester. So you don't have to have an appointment, you can just drop right in, get help. These hours right here are in the same building we're in right now. In fact, room 220 is across the hall, just right over there. Unfortunately, they're not going on week 1. So these office hours are really going to start on week 2. Any questions so far? Okay, the course textbook, I sent out a mass email to folks about a week ago. This one is bundled in with the course software on the WebAssign. So folks might decide they need to have a hard copy, but I'd say register for WebAssign first. We're going to take a look at that today and see what it looks like. And if you feel like their online version of the textbook is just not going to work for you, then I'd say there's other great ways to get a copy of this book right here. We also have a calculator policy, and the policy is we desperately need one for this course material. There's a lot of heavy computations that we really can't get through, even on homework or quizzes, without access to a powerful enough calculator. So I mentioned here, I'll be using the T84 Plus calculator in class. And this is essentially the only calculator I will be using, unless someone has a T83 and they want to see it done on that calculator. This is what it looks like right here. And so every time I do a computation in class, I'm always going to show you what I'm pressing here as well. You can look them up on the YouTube videos. I also encourage you to bring your calculator to class as well, so you can punch your keys along with me. It's just a great way to get muscle memory, so you know just how the calculator is going to be used, what are the operations and menus and such before heading into an exam. I would say the calculator, although very, very important, it's probably not something you need right away on the first few weeks. They're expensive. They're about $100 each. So if you have to wait a little while on that, that'll be okay. I'll be keeping the class very informed for when a calculator problem will hit an exam and things like that. So you'll be well aware. Aside from that, I'm going to skip this portion right here, course description, course objectives. I'll leave it to your reading. And it'll make a lot more sense after you finish the class anyways, before taking all this stuff. Let's discuss a little bit about the homework. The homework's going to be administered through WebAssign, and this is the code you have to use to join the class. I'll demonstrate how all that works after we run through the syllabus in Moodle. But any questions at the moment about the online homework itself? Okay, this is where we're going to do the majority of our practice. So for each section we finish, there's going to be an associated segment on the online homework, and there'll also be quizzes. The quizzes that I assign are going to be given on Thursdays. They'll be due the following Mondays, and they're not meant to really interfere with the online homework. This can take some time to get through, and these are really just short and quick quizzes. Think of them more as a participation credit more than anything else. So far, that's just about how the class is going to run aside from the exams. Any questions at all? Okay, let's keep on running through this. For the exams, I put down a lot of information here, and we'll come back to some of this as we're getting closer to exams, so we're not just cramming in information on the first day. I'd say the most relevant thing is, aside for possibly exam 1, and I'll keep you informed depending on how fast we're going, exams 2, exams 3, and the final exam will definitely require a TI-84. Now, the math department is trying to get a, what's the right word here, a set of TI-84s, so I might be able to bring in some on an actual exam. I'd still say we need a TI-84 just for the sake of practicing it with homework and quizzes to prepare for the exam. Any questions at all about the examinations, quizzes, or homework? Okay, let's see. Aside from that, I guess the grading is pretty impressive to look at. It'd be weird to not talk about it on day 1. The way the course is going to be assessed is 20% of it is going to come directly from the homework system and WebAssign. So I would say for passing the class, this one is probably going to be the most impactful. Folks that are really getting the most of that, their percentage in the homework, tend to do very well everywhere else because it's a little bit easier after you've seen everything once. Quizzes again are mainly participation, so this is an easy way to get points in the class as well. Altogether, you were already at 30%. Our exams are going to be heavily based upon what you're doing in the web-assigned homework system, as well as the quizzes. So if you're doing great on these segments, you'll feel like the actual exams we have in class are really just formalities. You have 75 minutes to complete the exam. I tried to write the exams up to be about a length of, sorry, I forgot what class I'm in. This class only goes to 6 to 650. Last semester, we had a 75-minute classes, so I got a little bit mixed up there. I'm going to have to write 50-minute exams. I'll probably write them to be about 40 minutes. So the extra 10 minutes would be to just check your work and things like that. Any questions so far about that redaction? Okay. Finally, the final exam is going to be worth 30% of the course. But again, if folks are doing great on their exams 1 through 3, the final exam is not really meant to be something that even drops your letter grade. In fact, on average, the letter grades for the entire course really don't typically drop on a final exam. And if they did, probably that'd be the one exam I may curve as well. So that's how to get the points in the course. We'll be talking about these things, homework, quizzes, and exams in a lot more detail. But any questions at all about the breakdown here? Okay, well, we're nearly done. Just scrolling through here. You might want to come back to the syllabus or maybe print out this sheet. Just depends on how you like to organize your information. But this is our day-by-day schedule. I already found a typo. Let me make a real quick note here. That's supposed to say Monday, December 11th. Let me make a correction. Aside from that, one typo there, the rest of these exam dates are firm. Our first exam will be on the 18th of September and so on towards the final exam. I guess it's kind of right there, but that's distracting up here. The day-by-day schedule does have a lot of flex built in. Say, for example, we just decide section maybe 4.2 was a hard one. We will take an extra day if we need to. I'm not going to try to cram and rush through the material. It'll just be about where we end up. Our goal in the course is to get to section 12.3. And so that's our major objective. Well, any questions, folks, on anything else about the syllabus? Okay, well, let's close this out. You'll always be able to find it right here at the very top document. Now, if I ever make any changes to really important documents, like say syllabuses, you'll see a new thing here that says revised. So that's how I keep track of any changes that might have to be forced in. The next thing on the menu is WebAssign. This is where we're going to be doing our homework. So if you click on this, you can ignore the class key for just a moment. It eventually takes you there, 2 clicks, in fact. So if you've used WebAssign before, you probably already know just about what to do. If you're new to WebAssign, the first thing you'd want to do after clicking on this link through WebAssign, letting this load in, it's taking a moment. We just move that out of the way. Next thing you want to do is hit Enter Class Key. It takes you to this view right here where it says Enter your course key. It just said Class Key. And over here I have Class Key. Right from where it says ISU, best thing to do is just copy it and paste it in. If everything is going according to plan, here's what you should see on the very next screen. It should say Math 1153P, Section 10. If it says Michael Jacobson, then you're in the right class. And it's at that point, you can click on Continue, just to continue with registering into the system. So if I hit Continue here, it's about where I'm going to run into a slight snag. If you've already used Cengage WebAssign, you can give them your email and just log in right here. But if you've never used it before, you'd want to click on Create Account right down below. I would say select student. That seems about the right thing to do. Give it your ISU email is probably the best thing to do right in this field. And then you can continue to complete the registration. Now, this course product is interesting because if you do it in this method, you clicked on the WebAssign link right here, you're doing your registration here, it's actually cheaper and it's substantially cheaper. I checked out the bookstore prices and for a WebAssign code, I believe it was like about $125. I'd have to double check that. Going through this directly to the website, they're not marketing it up like the bookstore would. This is only going to come to about $70 after taxes. And another nice thing is $70 during back to school is not nice, but you can delay actually finishing the payment for 2 weeks before they badger you again. So you can start working for 2 weeks without worrying about any payments you'll have to sign. Any questions about it so far? Yeah.
So if you sign up for this, then you don't necessarily need to purchase any other materials, right?
That's correct, other than potentially a TI-84 calculator.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's also going to be up to if you like the digital format of the book. I think some people aren't too opposed to it, but if you're a more tactile person, if you want something you can grab and write on, you may want to, in fact, order a physical copy. But I'll leave it up to the class at this moment. Should we jump into WebAssign just to see what it looks like, or should we wait till people start registering? How about jump in? No one opposed to that? Okay, let's take a look at if you did all these steps, create your account, or just logged back into your account and joined the course. Here's what's going to start to look like. Computer. Felt right. Let's see if that works. Okay, finally, this is the page I was trying to get to. Once you've registered for WebAssign, you've logged back in, then this is pretty much it right here. On a section by section basis, you'll see the section 1.2, the title. Click on that, and now you're inside the homework system. It's going to tell you where you're at with the problems, where your score is currently at 0%, but you work your way up to 100% as you go through it. If you scroll down here, here's question number 1 for 25 points, and then we just go right through it. There's a lot of other buttons in here, and I'm not going to try to introduce them all on day one. I'm going to be coming back to this as we go through the weeks to mention interesting things like extension requests and so on. But one thing you should know right away is I encourage you to use that button, ask your teacher. If you're confused on what they're asking you, or maybe you tried it and you got something wrong, but you felt like it was right, or maybe you got the right answer, but you don't know why it's right, all those kinds of things would be good reasons to click on this button. At the end of the day, you can move these really fast, but if you move through without the understanding of why an answer is right or why an answer is incorrect, then it becomes not as much value. Another tricky thing about statistics classes, Chapter 1 is more about all the working definitions of vocabulary we're going to need. So a lot of the questions are of this style. They're just getting through the verbiage, multiple choice type questions. You do have 4 tries, so it wouldn't be too hard to move through these. But later on, we'll be doing more computational style questions, which is the better reason why there's 4 tries per question. Any questions or comments at the moment? Okay, other things to mention is, suppose you jumped right into the homework. That's kind of brave, but it's in a certain sense working backwards. The best way to use WebAssign is, say you logged into the Moodle website, scroll to wherever the current week is, that says read a section. That's probably the first thing you want to do. Go to the book and read that section. I don't have any notes for 1.1 here since 1.1 is a really, really short section, but it's worth reading, so I wrote it there, read in that section. Suppose you're starting in section 1.2, where we are right here. If you jump right into the homework, it is pretty hard. You'd want to first go to maybe, let's see here, need help? If you click on read it, then it's just a really, really fast way to get right into the textbook. The great news about that, it takes you to the relevant part of the textbook you would want to read to understand that particular question. And this is it. That's the actual textbook right here. Again, it's weird because it's all just scrolling. There's not necessarily page numbers it indicates in this particular format, but you can go anywhere you want in this textbook. If you click right here, you could read section 1.1 or any other section in this current chapter. And that's how the reading is in this textbook. So for $70, you do get access to this. It's only available online, unfortunately. You can look for ways to get other versions if you feel like that might be more helpful. And that's about how the homework is going to be working through the semester. Any questions at the moment about WebAssign or otherwise? Okay, I don't want to get too far into it because probably the most important thing to do on day one is just get registered for it so you're ready to go. Again, registration is free and you can work in the system for 2 weeks free, as well as access to the textbook. So I'd say that's a good thing to do after class. Although that's tough. This is a night class, I understand that, and working right after class is probably, for many people, one of the hardest things to do. You have home life and such, work coming up. And so if you put this off to just the next available time, getting through the reading and these kinds of things in the homework, then you'll be in great shape. So I'd say the next time available, get registered for WebAssign and you are on track and caught up for class on Tuesday. But let me go back to the Moodle website here. Other things I want to mention are, we've looked at 2 resources, the syllabus and WebAssign, probably going to be used quite a lot, clicked on very often. If you have any trouble with setting up WebAssign, take a look at this document. It's just a step-by-step. With the screenshot, you'll see the places to go and the information to plug in. Next link is, if there's ever a problem, I'd say come to me first. Say, hey, Mike, I don't know what WebAssign is doing or something like that. I'm going to do my best to resolve it from my end. But if I can't fix it, maybe it's a technical issue, you might want to look into this right here. And in some cases, if you don't want to bother with technical support, I can work on it on your behalf as well. But if there's anything weird going on, this is a link that you can take a look at. I have a couple more links I've just been putting up every semester. They seem like good things to have, because this is a pretty good question. If you have not really been exposed to a lot of statistics, you might be curious to why your program is requiring it. It's a lot of work to get through this kind of class. So click on this link that it takes you to, I kind of forgot, it's a different university, I believe, Boston University. They have a really great write-up of what we're doing in this class and why it might be of value. This one right here is more mathematical study strategies. If you're taking other math classes, you'll probably find this to be a really useful website. But after I read through this link right here, studying for how they say to study for math, it's really very similar for statistics and many other disciplines. So I feel like this is still a pretty valuable resource for folks. After we record our first lecture, pretty much what I do is I have a class right after this one, which is inconvenient, then I head home. But on the mornings right after, that's when I start uploading things. Usually everything should be uploaded on the prior day by about 10 a.m. the next morning. So by 10 a.m. Tuesday, if you click here, then you'll start to see the actual lectures that we've recorded. So if you had to step out of class, take a call, you can always come back to see what was missing. Or if you're studying, you can come back to different sections through this listing right here. Also, everything we put, or everything I work on, is going to be available in multiple formats. If you'd like to use Microsoft Word, then the notes that I'm going to be using are just right here. These are the real lecture notes. They're just blank, like worksheets. The other place you'll find the lecture notes for the day is always right here. These are the PDF versions. I'm emphasizing the PDF since they're just more compatible cross-platform for a lot of people. So if you click on this, this is also the better one to print. Microsoft Word can be unstable with printing since I use the equation editor here or there. So you could print out the notes right here. Again, this is exact same notes I bring to class. It's just more as a worksheet with lots and lots of white space between concepts and problems. After we finish off these notes, what I'll do is save wherever we got to, and I'll re-upload it to where we left off. So we'll have the notes that we solved by hand always available here, as well as the recorded lectures right up above. And that's pretty much how the course is going to go. On a week-by-week basis, you'll see the readings, the relevant notes, they'll eventually get solved. And once we get to Thursday, you'll see a new quiz posted here with a due date. So that's pretty much the whole setup of the class. Only things that changes are exam dates. And we'll talk a lot more about those as we get closer. Well, any questions at all, folks, about the introductions today? Okay, as far as really doing the class, there's a lot of different strategies that work. I'd say about half of us have laptops. And so if you like Word, you could download the file here, or you could download this file and just start working at it as I work on the file. So you can kind of fill things in as we go. If you'd rather just use ordinary notebook paper, that's completely fine as well. In fact, the more you use your hand, it's more of a kind of mind and brain connection. Things that you write down are more easy to remember sometimes than even typing. It's a weird study that people have been finding about with taking notes. So if you're just going to take ordinary hand notes, that's always going to be appropriate as well. Some people might even say just print out these documents completely. If you print this out before you come to class, now you're not worried about copying any of this information. Definitions, some of them get really, really long. And one thing that's a little bit rough in a statistics class is, this is what the problems look like. They're all word problems. Just about every single thing we do has context, and we have to dissect that context and read through it. That's not something you want to try to copy down while you're in class. So printing off notes might be another effective avenue. Well, any other questions so far, folks, about just working the class, whether you're on the laptop or doing it on paper?
As far as word problems go, well, some of them include graphs sometimes, depending on the word problem in question.
Occasionally, yes. And those graphs would always be supplied themselves. Any other questions about that or otherwise? Okay. Other questions so far, folks? Okay, let me think. Maybe one last thing I forgot to mention is, as we get closer and closer to, say, exams, I wanted to show you about what that's going to look like. So I'm going to go to last semester. Once we get closer to any exam, whether it's exam one or the final exam, you'll start to see a lot more stuff just thrown in here. I'll tell you the exact coverage well before we actually get to this date. I'll let you know what's allowed on the exam, as well as stuff like this. There'll be always a sample exam available. So the sample exam, you might notice it's going to be pretty similar to the homework that we did in class, the quizzes, and even the lecture notes, but they're all different problems, just an extra chance to practice. And any one of these could be a bona fide real problem on an actual exam. So you'll always know about what the coverage is. You'll always have a set of problems to practice. And that's essentially how we're going to fill out the Moodle website day by day. Well, I think I did my whole spiel. That took about 26 minutes, not too bad. This is only a 15-minute class, so that requires a little bit of creativity on my part. I'm going to try to always end class so we're not in the middle of a problem. Some of those problems do get a little bit long, so we'll see how we do. I guess we can get started with section 1.1. I'm not, or excuse me, 1.2. I'm not going to try to get too far on this. Mostly just introduce the first couple definitions. Take some questions, and we may end a few minutes early today. Any questions at all, folks, before we get started? Okay, so essentially, other things I do when I get going with class is, oh, that mouse doesn't work. We go over here. This right here is just my thumb drive. So if you see me jumping into this, grabbing stuff, I'm really just using my thumb drive side of what's duplicated on the Moodle website. Let me try to get things to fit a little bit better. Always weird using a brand new computer after a while. I'll try to go for a zoom of about, let's see what looks good. Does 140%, the view right here, look legible to everyone? Okay, awesome. If it ever again gets a little too fuzzy, let me know. I'm not opposed to bumping up the font or just zooming it a little bit more. Another thing I have to do, which I should mention right away, a student had a question about this like midway last semester last year. I don't have any crazy tattoos, as you can see. I have to wear this Michael Jackson glove all semester. It's kind of weird. And the only reason is I'll be using this writing pad as well. So if you're wondering why Mike is always wearing a glove, that's why. So this is essentially how we're going to be doing class. These are really just worksheets with the definitions thrown in. We'll fill out examples like this one. If there's a number on it, like example 1, that means this is similar to something you could see on WebAssign or as a quiz or even an exam problem. But anything that just says example, we're just trying to get our handle on what the definition even is. This is something that is always tricky. If you're in a math class, a statistics class, a biology class, we don't have really strong working information on the definitions. Everything becomes much harder. So here's our first big definition of statistics. The population is the entire collection of individuals that you want to learn about, and the sample is the part that is selected for us to study. So that's the whole definition, and here's where it goes sideways. Knowing the definition is definitely never really good enough in a stats class or even a math class. We really have to expound upon it. So first thing we're going to do whenever we get these definitions is throw in some kind of an example. Let's start right here. It says, the population is the entire collection of individuals or objects you wish to learn about. So let's do our own population. Just to make it feel more immediate, let's say the population is all ISU students. So that's us, and a relative related sample, the definition here says, it's just part of the population that we're selecting to study. So let's go over here and say that the sample will be n equals 100 students selected. So we have two different things that we're worried about. This is going to be every single ISU student, so that obviously includes the main campus, none of which are here today potentially. Already ever used some different symbols that we'll see a lot. A lowercase n right here is always just saying the size of the sample you selected. It didn't have to be written here, but it's good to always associate that together. It'll be used in formulas all over the place. So we have 100 different students, and now we have to decide, what are we doing with them? Well, the first thing we might do is say, why are we studying the original population to begin with? It might mean to uncover something like this. So that's a weird symbol. Have folks seen this symbol before in other contexts? That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. It's the Greek letter mu, and depending on what you're doing, it could have different meanings. Let's put a quick note right up here. So this is going to be the mean, and that's already weird. In statistics, the word mean is fully synonymous with average. If you wrote average right now, that's completely fine as well. I'll say here, mu is the mean or average of the population. We're trying to average something. Say if we had 10 people, we're averaging their heights. All we would do is add up all their heights, divide by 10. So the ordinary concept of average that we're all used to. So down below here, let's say we are considering the population of every ISU student. We're going to calculate an average. So that's why we put the Greek letter mu right here. We'll say it's the mean GPA of all students. So that's what we're trying to study. And this is kind of a silly example. If you work for ISU, if you're a high level administrator, you could just go in the databases and access that number. But if you're a competitor, maybe you're marketing for a rival campus, you might need to estimate this, and ISUs may not give it to you. That might be considered very personal information for them. But if you can get a sample, you might be able to figure out what mu is. So let me put just a little bubble here to make it feel kind of like a Venn diagram. We went from the population to a smaller set of individuals, just 100 students. They'll be easier to access, easier to study. And here, we're not actually going to compute mu. You need to have every single student add up all of their GPAs, thousands of students, and divide by the student body number. But over here, the task is more manageable. We're going to calculate something called X bar. We just say X bar, and it's literally an X with a bar over it, so that's a great way to indicate it. Let me put over here what X bar really means. X bar is the mean, I'll just say here once again for clarity, or average of the sample. So here, we only want to average 100 different values. We'll let X bar be equal to mean GPA of the 100 students. So that's essentially what we're doing when we calculate statistics and consider the population. This is what we really want to know about. But in order to learn about something large and complex, sometimes we have to use a sample. The rival campus that I've been mentioning, trying to learn about ISU, they can't necessarily get even more than 100 students, depending on how complicated the study is. These things cost money, they take time and energy, and so sometimes your samples are small, like in this instance here. Any questions or comments at the moment? Okay, so here's our conundrum then. We really want to learn about mu. That's the end all. We can say what mu is, our work is done. And our problem is, mu is unknown. The only way you could actually calculate mu is, again, you have to find the GPA of every single student, add them all up, and now you know mu. But we only have 100 students that we could actually work with, so we cannot even calculate mu whatsoever. But here's our next thing we can say. If you can't calculate mu, you can at least calculate the sample average X bar. So X bar is known. And here's our big punchline. We have that. Mu is going to be approximately X bar under certain conditions that we'll discuss some here, and we'll be discussing them essentially the whole course. So that's nice. I put here an equality sign that's kind of wavy, just say approximately equal to. So we have something that we don't know, we wish to learn about. We take a sample of 100 students, calculate their average GPA or mean GPA. The quantity in blue is known, estimating our unknown quantity in green, the population's mean. So that's an exciting fact, but there is a heck of a lot of things that can go wrong. Let me put here just in purple that approximation symbol again. Now, let's say, for example, all 100 students were selected from this campus, University Place. They are in the CHE building recently. We go to calculate their X bar, and we say that's approximately the average GPA of the entire university. There'd be a really big problem with that. Any volunteers for what would be wrong with that reasoning? Yeah, go ahead.
There's just a lot of variables.
Absolutely. There's a lot we're not accounting for. Yes, go ahead.
There's two different pools of students, so
Mhm.
it affects that kind of variable, with having these students having a different time due to the aspect of this school and due to the other one.
Exactly. CHE students, or I should say University Place students, are not necessarily the same as all ISU students. This becomes absolutely and tremendously biased if all of our data is just from one campus. We didn't have a chance of taking a Pocatello student unless that person was on campus for one reason or another, but not typically on there. So for this to really work, for that estimation in purple to really be an accurate estimation, we need to select at random. And we have a lot to say about at random. There's different randomization schemes, so that'll be part of our course as well in chapter 1. So if we randomly select 100 people so that those people have a chance to be at any campus, it could be in Meridian, they could be even in Alaska. We have satellite campuses even in Alaska, for example. Then do the average GPA of those 100 students, this becomes much more believable. At this stage, this is the science of statistics. There is still more problems, however. We have completed the definition. This is what we mean by population. This is what we mean by sample. And calculating the X bar allows us to study the underlying population we want to learn about. But there's a problem right here. Anyone spot what the issue is with that approximation? Assuming we really had random. It's kind of a subtle issue. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm trying to word this.
No worries. No worries. Statistics can easily become a tangled mess. So if I ever look tongue-tied, I'm going through the same thing in that moment. I would say the big issue here is we said a quantity that we cannot calculate, but it's approximately X bar. And that sounds great, well and good. Now, the next question you might have is, what about the accuracy, however? If I tell you that say a bus is approximately so many feet long, engineer might say, what is your error in that estimation if it's going to go over my bridge? We need to be precise about what we know as well as what we don't know. And what I haven't described here yet is how reliable this even is. It could be terrible. It might be better if the sample size goes up, but by how much better? All of those questions have to be answered every time we give an estimation. Let's put here just as a remark, if I type something out that's probably not something that's going to be directly inserted into a quiz or exam, but something you might want to read when you look at these notes again, just to tie together ideas. You know that's coming if it's just typed in. So I'll put here, remark, in brackets just to say it's really an aside again. The estimation here is worthless until we can describe how accurate it is. In other words, we need to know the error in making this estimate. We can say what that error is. We've essentially built one of the major building blocks of our course, a confidence interval. I want an interval of numbers that can contain the unknown mu with a certain percent chance. That percent chance is kind of nasty too, because it means we have to talk about probability to make all of this work from the beginning. But I would say for what we put on the page right here, it looks like a jumbled mess. I understand. I feel that way sometimes too, going through statistics. One of the reasons I always upload these notes is we'll come back to this. We'll see where we're at when we build through the topics, and we'll see just how to make this happen right here. Let me just put one more tied together here. Use yellow, that might work better. I'll try to do lots of highlighting in different colors just to associate things together. So if I did population in green, everything associated with the population is probably going to stay green in these notes. You don't have to do that yourself, but if you find that it's helping, definitely try to find a way to do multiple colors. It just helps the brain out to get traction and see how things connect. Well, any questions at all, folks, with the first definitions? Okay, if we had a 75-minute class, probably what we'd have done is go off to the next topic, read through the definitions, and then try it again with the next example. Once these are completed, again, you'll see them right here. It's going to look exactly the same, so it's hard to tell right away if the notes are even completed. But the one way you'll tell is, once those notes are done, I'm going to put a due date right here. That'll be your indication that we're moving on to the very next section, and you can start working on 1.2 in the web assigned system. But for us, I think we're at a pretty good stopping point right exactly here. Any questions at all, folks, with the definitions? Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording here.